All right, so in lick number 3, you might have got sort of a Jimi Hendrix or a Stevie Ray Vaughan type vibe, and that would be probably from that first chord, which is it's an A7 sharp 9, and I'll explain how to play that. It's actually pretty easy, but it's a chord that Hendrix used a lot, especially in songs even like Purple Haze. You'd hear that chord. It's kind of funky, almost sounds kind of wrong. But it's quirky enough that it really works in a funk blues. And so here's the way to think of home bass in this case. So when you're playing let's see, let's think of an A7 chord down here using this chord shape. Now I'm using the C7 chord shape. If you know how to make a C chord in first position, you put your pinky down on the 3rd fret, 3rd string, you got a C7, right? Well, if you slide that chord shape all the way up so that your ring finger and middle finger are on the 12th fret, you're playing an A7. So just remember where that C7 chord is in relation to like this chord. So you have a C chord here, you have a C7 chord here. That means you have an A chord up here, and then you have that A7 chord here. So this A chord is the same as the A in first position. We're just playing it an octave higher, okay? So anyway, that's just to kind of help you think about the A in some different places. So now we got A7 chord here. Let's take these, let's rearrange our fingers a bit. Let's take our middle finger and our ring finger and put them down both on the 12th fret, middle finger on the 5th string, ring finger on the 3rd string. And then our index finger on the 11th fret, 4th string. Okay, so that's kind of that A7th type sound. Now our pinky can actually change the chord a lot, but to get that A7 sharp 9, that Hendrix sounding chord, we're going to put it down, in this case, on the 13th fret, 2nd string. And that's what gives it that kind of weird, that's what sounds wrong, is when you hear that note, that sharp 9. But that's that funky little addition that makes that chord sound so good and so unique. Okay, so that's what gives it that feel. Now that's kind of our home bass. So just remember that you can play an A chord up here. Now you can also play an A7. You can get into A9. You have, so that's what I meant when I said your pinky can determine a lot. You can play that sharp 9, or if you just move it back one, you're playing an A9, which is a great slidable chord. So, okay, so now that we've got that, the first thing that I played was a little lead part that goes, and I repeated that lead over and over again. I wanted to show how you could take that same lick and play it, even though the chords are going to change. It kind of has this, there's a song called Mary Had a Little Lamb, not the traditional one, but the Stevie Ray Vaughan version. I don't know if Buddy Guy maybe did it originally, but this kind of has that feel to it, to me, the way that I structured this. But anyway, because there's a little repeated lick over and over again as the chords change. But so what I'm doing from a pattern perspective is I'm in pattern 4. For A, pattern 4, the minor pentatonic scale. You have pattern 4, then you have pattern 5, and then you go all the way back to pattern 1. It's awful high. So you have pattern 1, 2, 3, 4, and that's where we're at. So we have all these little licks down here, or this little extension, and you'll see this in the blues lead course if you haven't looked at it. Just look for pattern 4. You have between the 10th fret and the 12th fret in A, you have a little box that you can do on all 3 of those bottom strings, and then you have this little box, and that goes from the 12th fret to the 14th fret. Now that's where we're going to start this lick. Now I showed you all of that so that you understand where we are, and you can go, wait a minute, if I don't want to play what he's playing, and I wanted to play see what I'm saying? you can start to improvise in different ways. Just like I showed you in that the first video, you can take this and you can start to make it go in other places. Let's get the lead though. 12th fret, slide it up to the 14th fret on the 3rd string. And what I'm doing, I'm sorry, on the 4th string. And I'm using my ring finger for that so that I can, and I'm barring that. So once I slide up to the 14th fret, I do an upstroke on the 3rd string, also on the 4th fret, and that's behind that bar there. So, and then we slide back down to the 12th fret, and that's on the 4th string. Now we're going to go down to the 10th fret. There's the 12th fret 5th string, 10th fret 5th string, 12th fret 5th string, and then the last note is the 10th fret 4th string. So all together, that's the lick. And it's pretty easy to do. You're kind of sliding. It makes a nice little box so it's easy to see. So now that we know the lick, let's talk about counting it in. So this one, I've got an extra measure to count it in. So we have 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and. So what if you notice, it came in on the and after the 1. So it's 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and. And that's why I gave you that extra measure, because if I just started with 1 and, you don't have enough to kind of get your bearings. So just count it in that way. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1. Okay, that's counting it in. Now let's get into the chord. So I've showed you how to make the A7 sharp 9. Let's talk about the strumming. So it's down, up, up. So down, up, and then you do a muted down, and then you do, or I'm sorry, it's a muted strum, muted down. So down, up, mute, and then do an up. And when you do that up, you release the tension here to truncate it, like that. Let me do it slowly. So let's add that with the lick now. Do it again. Just keep doing it. Now, one mistake a lot of you might make is in your timing. So after you go, there's a rest. So da-da, rest. And then that rest gives you a chance to take a breath and go back into that. Rest. Okay? And that's the vibe of the whole thing. Now let's go to the next chord, which is the D7 chord. Now the way that I'm playing that is right here. It's in the same place. Really all I'm doing, if you think of a D major, there's your D major chord. If you take your pinky and put it on the 13th fret 2nd string, there's your D7 chord. I didn't have time to make the full chord, so I'm just pulling these 3 notes out of the chord. So I've got my pointer finger on the 10th fret 4th string, my middle finger is on the 11th fret 3rd string, and my pinky is on the 13th fret 2nd string. It's actually pretty easy to grab that. And I do the same down, up strum, down, up, muted strum, I should say, down, or up. Down, up, mute, up. On just those 3 strings, 4, 3, and 2. So now it switches, and it goes back to the A. Now we go to the E. Now I brought that little lick down to that 12th fret 6th string, so instead of going back up, right there I went to 12th fret 6th string, And then I played the E7 chord. That's using the exact same shape that we did for the D. We just slid it up 2 frets so that our index finger is on the 12th fret 3rd string, middle finger is on the 13th fret, index finger is on the 12th fret 4th string. Index fingers on the 13th fret 3rd string, and then pinky's on the 15th fret 2nd string. And that's same strum pattern. There's the E part. And then back to the A. And then it just repeats from there. Now that's where, if I were playing this with a band, I would probably do that lick a lot. And then it sounds a little boring if you just keep repeating it. So you might want to play little variations on that. And that's why I showed you the pattern that we're in, pattern 4, the minor pentatonic scale for A, so that you can start to realize what other notes are right down in the neighborhood. That would be the E. And you can just start to improvise and come up with your own licks. But start with the one that I showed you. I think that's a great starting point, and it would give you an anchor so that if you were to improvise a little bit, you can always come back to something familiar. So now you've got these 3 different blues rhythms that are, I think that will really take your blues playing, your blues rhythm playing to a whole new level, just by starting to think outside the box and think about ways that you can kind of spice things up as a rhythm player. Alright, that's what we have for this week. I hope you've enjoyed this. I always do. I have more fun than a man deserves. It's like a dream come true, making these lessons every week. I love it. So we'll see you next week with something new.